Have you ever bottled up so many emotions that one day they explode in a way you never saw coming? That's exactly what happened to me that night. The funeral was over. The guests had gone. And then my son locked the door behind us and said something that made my knees go weak. I never imagined that moment would change our relationship forever. Before I tell you what happened, I want to know, where are you watching from? Are you in the heart of New York City? A peaceful little town in Ohio? Or maybe somewhere sunny out west, like California? Drop it in the comments. It warms my heart to see where my Love and Tears family is listening from. Because when I tell this story, I don't want to feel like I'm telling it alone. That night, the house felt too quiet. You'd think after hosting more than 30 people for the memorial, I'd welcome the silence. But this quiet wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It sat on my chest, making every breath feel just a little harder. My husband Richard had just been laid to rest. 47 years together. It didn't feel real that he was gone. My son Daniel had been at my side through every moment, from the hospital bed to the endless paperwork to delivering the eulogy, even though his voice trembled with grief. He was the kind of son any mother would pray for, gentle, steady kind. And yet, there was something in his eyes that day, something unspoken, something he was holding back just like I was. When the last of the family left, I went upstairs to my bedroom. I hadn't changed out of my black dress, the one with lace sleeves Richard always loved. My feet ached, my back throbbed, but my heart felt like it was breaking in slow motion. I sat on the edge of the bed, my eyes fixed on a photo of Richard and me from our 40th anniversary. He had that proud, joyful smile I'll never forget. Then I heard the creak of the stairs. Daniel appeared quietly in the doorway. For a moment, he just stood there watching me. Then he stepped inside and gently closed the door. The click of the lock was soft, but I felt it deep in my chest. He was in his white shirt sleeves, rolled up tie loose, the top button undone. His deep brown eyes fixed on me, and there was a look in them I couldn't quite name. "Mom," he said softly, "can I talk to you?" Of course, I replied, a little surprised. "Come sit." But he didn't, at least not right away. He went to the window, glanced into the darkness outside, and then turned back to me. "I need to tell you something I should have said a long time ago. And I need you to just listen." A strange tightness gripped my stomach. I nodded, unsure what was coming. He sat beside me closer than usual. I could feel the heat radiating from him. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he reached out and took my hand. It wasn't like when he was little and clung to me during thunderstorms. This touch was different, steady, intentional. Losing Dad, he began, made me realize how much time we let slip away. How many things we never say to the people we love. My throat tightened. I squeezed his hand, but didn't trust my voice just yet. "There's something I've carried for years," he continued. "Feelings, questions, regrets. And now that it's just you and me, I can't pretend they're not there." His words hung in the air like fog. I studied his face, the tired eyes, the grief etched in his features, but also something else. Vulnerability. "Daniel," I whispered, "you can tell me anything." "You know that." He drew in a deep breath. "That's just it, Mom. I don't know if I can, because what I'm feeling, it's not what you'd expect. It's not even what I expected. I'm scared you'll be hurt or ashamed, or you'll never look at me the same way again." I let go of his hand only to cradle his cheek instead. "Daniel, nothing you say could ever make me love you less. You're my son." His eyes closed for a moment, leaning into my palm like he needed that touch more than air. "I love Dad," he said. "I still do. But the truth is, I've been seeing you differently for a long time. Not in a way that's wrong or ugly, just different. You're not just my mother. You're a woman, strong, beautiful, complex. A woman who's carried this family through everything. And lately, I've seen sides of you I never noticed before. How you cared for Dad. How you stood so tall, even when you were breaking inside. It made me feel things I never expected." Daniel said quietly. I pulled my hand away, not in anger, but because I suddenly needed space to breathe. I shifted slightly on the bed, my mind spinning. He didn't move. The silence between us felt alive, humming like static electricity. Grief, confusion, warmth, guilt, and beneath it all, a strange ache I hadn't allowed myself to feel since Richard first got sick. Finally, I asked Daniel, "What do you want from me right now?" He met my gaze, steady but unsure. "I don't know, I just needed to be honest. I had to tell you, and I need to know. Have you ever felt anything even a little?" That's when I realized my hands were trembling. I looked at his face. No longer the boy who used to cling to me during thunderstorms, but a man who had just buried his father, a man searching for connection, for clarity, maybe even for comfort. Something deep inside me stirred, but I couldn't speak. Not yet. Not until I understood what it meant. He reached up and brushed away a tear from my cheek. I hadn't even realized I was crying. "Whatever happens," he murmured, "I love you. I always will. Nothing has to change. But I needed to be real with you tonight." His confession lingered in the room, like the scent of candle wax after a vigil, thick, impossible to ignore. We didn't speak again that night. He eventually stood, leaned down to kiss my forehead, and whispered, "I'll sleep on the couch." I just nodded. My thoughts were too tangled for words. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every memory of Daniel as a boy rushed back, his tiny hand gripping mine on his first day of school. The way he'd fall asleep on my chest when storms rattled the windows. The proud gleam in his eyes at his college graduation. And now here he was, a man raw and vulnerable, with a truth that still echoed in my bones. Somewhere before dawn, I must have drifted off. When I woke, sunlight spilled through the sheer curtains. For a moment, I forgot. And then it all came back. Downstairs, I heard the faint clink of dishes. I pulled on my robe and followed the smell of coffee. Daniel stood barefoot at the counter, brewing 2 cups. When he turned, His smile was soft, part hope, part hesitation. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, my voice still rough. "You didn't have to make coffee," I murmured. "I wanted to, I thought. Maybe we could talk if you're ready." I nodded. "Just let me wash my face." When I returned, he was already seated at the table, the morning paper untouched beside him. The kitchen was the same, yet somehow it felt different. Or maybe it was us. We sipped in silence for a while before I spoke. "Daniel, what you said last night, it caught me off guard. Not because I'm angry, I'm not, but because I never imagined we'd have a moment like that. A moment where everything inside just cracks open." He studied me. "Do you hate me for saying it?" "No," I said quickly. "Never. You were brave, honest. I admire that." He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath since the night before. I didn't want to keep pretending. I didn't want to just smile through our grief, go back to my life, and always wonder if I'd missed something real between us. His words tugged at something in me. Not desire, not confusion, but an intimacy I hadn't felt in years. Not since Richard got sick. Maybe not even before that. "You said you felt this for a while," I asked gently. He nodded. "Yeah, at first I thought it was just admiration. But during Dad's illness, you were so strong, so present, and I started to see you differently. There were nights I couldn't sleep." Daniel said, his voice low but steady. "I'd lie there thinking about how much you carry and how beautiful you are when you're trying not to cry." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting his words wash over me. No one had looked at me as a woman in a long time, not really. Not since the early years of my marriage. Not since the weight of caregiving grief and life itself had aged me faster than the calendar ever could. "I'm not who I was, Daniel," I murmured. "I'm 75. I'm a widow. My bones ache, my body's tired. You're still the most beautiful woman I know," he cut in softly. "And it's not about age or looks. It's the way you speak to people, the way you listen, the way your hands can comfort someone. That's what I see. That's what draws me." I didn't know what to say. My heart was racing again, just like it had the night before. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard. I remember one night he began his eyes, dropping to his coffee cup, tracing the rim with his finger. "I was 16. You'd just come home from your shift. You didn't know I was awake. I saw you standing in front of the bathroom mirror, taking your hair down. You looked so tired, but something about you in that moment stuck with me. I didn't just see my mom, I saw a real person, someone I wanted to protect too." The memory hit me like a wave. I remembered that exact night. I'd been too exhausted even to cry. I felt guilty for years, he continued quietly, for noticing, for feeling something. But after Dad passed, I couldn't keep pretending it was nothing more than a passing thought. I reached across the table, my hand covering his. "I felt something last night," I admitted, my voice trembling. "When you took my hand, when you looked at me. Something stirred in me, something I haven't felt in years. I just didn't know what to do with it. I still don't." His eyes lifted to meet mine, a little red, a little glassy. "You don't have to do anything," he said gently. I just need our bond to be real, not one full of masks and silence. I gave his hand a light squeeze. I appreciate your honesty, Daniel. And I want you to know, I don't see you differently. I see you more clearly. And maybe I see myself more clearly too. We sat there, the morning sun, shifting painting, golden light across the kitchen walls that had heard laughter, arguments, whispered prayers, and now this. Eventually, I stood to tidy the kitchen, and Daniel helped. Our fingers brushed more than once, tiny touches that lingered longer than they should. The day passed quietly. No grand declarations, no decisions, but something unspoken wove itself between us, soft as a breath. That evening, a single knock on my bedroom door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there, barefoot, eyes holding the same quiet vulnerability as the night before. He didn't speak. He simply stepped inside and closed the door. The lock clicked. But this time, I wasn't afraid. This time, I was ready to hear everything. The air felt warmer, heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. The faint scent of my perfume lingered in the room, mingling with the low hum of the ceiling fan. The late light stretched long shadows across the floor. I sat on the bed, just like the night before waiting. He took a step forward, then another, until he stood in front of me, close enough that I could feel the charged space between us. "I'm not here to make things harder," he said quietly. But I couldn't sleep last night. I kept replaying our conversation. "Me too," I whispered. All day, he sat beside me. The only sound was the gentle ticking of the clock on the dresser. Richard's old clock, now marking time for something neither of us could have ever imagined. "Can I ask you something?" he murmured. "Go ahead. Do you ever feel like you've been someone's wife and someone's mother for so long, you forgot how to just be you?" The question landed deep, right where I keep my most private truths. I nodded slowly. "Every day. That's how I see you now," he said, shifting to face me fully. "Just you. Not in a disrespectful way. Not forgetting who you've been to me, but finally seeing the woman who's always been there underneath it all." I swallowed against the lump in my throat. "Richard was a good man," I said, "but in our later years, we became routine. Guys, there are moments in life that we don't plan for. But when they come, the heart can't ignore them." The fire between Thomas and I had long since died out. And when illness came to him, I became more of a caregiver than a partner. I traded my youth, my emotions, even my health, without a word of complaint. But gradually, I forgot what it felt like to be touched, to be cherished, to be truly seen. That evening, Ethan placed his hand on mine. This time, I didn't pull away. His thumb drew slow circles on the back of my hand, as if reminding me that I was still worth seeing, loving and holding. I looked at him and said softly, "You're also suffering a loss, Ethan. You just lost your father." He nodded his eyes, distant. "Yes, I miss him. But I think I've been sad for longer than that. Sad for the things we never said. Sad for you. Because you were lonely even when someone was sitting next to you." Those words pierced me. He saw, the loneliness that I thought I had hidden so well. Ethan leaned toward me, his voice low and warm. I know there is a line between what we used to be and this. But there is something in me that wants to take care of you, like you have taken care of everyone all your life. His forehead touched mine. Not a kiss, but a search, a closeness. He gently intertwined his hands with mine waiting. And I didn't pull away. A part of me, a part that had been dormant for decades, was waking up. I don't know what this will become. I confessed. It doesn't have to be anything, he replied. We just need to cherish this moment. Not alone, at least tonight. And so I let myself lean into his arms. We didn't rush, didn't seek an explosion, just stayed together, touching lightly, talking in whispers. We talked about his childhood, about my early days with Thomas, about the things we missed, and the things we thought we would never say. At one point, Ethan brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. You're still beautiful, still radiant. I chuckled, wiping away a tear. I feel old. To me, you are timeless. We lay next to each other, still holding hands. For the first time in many years, I felt appreciated, not for what I could do, but simply because I was me. That night, we didn't cross the final line, but we both knew something had changed. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, gently illuminating every line of the room. I opened my eyes and saw Ethan still beside me. No passion, no confusion, just a quiet understanding. He turned over, found my hand under the covers. Good morning. Good morning, Ethan. We lay still, no pressure, no expectations. But in my heart, the question still rang out. Where do we go from here? Finally, Ethan sat up, smiling softly. I think I should make breakfast. Ethan, we need to talk. I know. I've been thinking about it too. We met again in the kitchen over eggs and toast. But that story, my friends, opened a whole new chapter. The morning sun spilled across the kitchen counter, warm and golden, as if it too wanted to soften what lingered between us. I poured 2 mugs of coffee, setting one in front of him. We sat across from each other, just like yesterday morning. But now the air carried a gentler tension. Last night, I began stirring cream into my cup, meant something to me. But I don't want you walking away feeling confused or thinking you did something wrong. I don't feel that way, Ethan said quickly, his eyes steady. I don't regret anything. If anything, I feel closer to you than I ever have. Not just because of the emotions, but because we were honest. I don't think I've ever been this honest with anyone. I nodded, my voice low. I haven't either. But honesty, Ethan, it's a door we walk through, not a place we stay. He studied me for a long moment, his gaze thoughtful. I'm not asking for a relationship, he said. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for. I just want you to know I see you now as a whole person. Not just my mother, not just a widow. You're a woman I admire. Someone I care about more deeply than I ever thought possible. His voice caught near the end. I reached for his hand, my fingers warm over his. I feel it too, I said softly. But we have to hold that feeling with care. What we shared last night, it came from grief, from love, but also from vulnerability. I know, he whispered. We both needed something last night, I continued. Not just comfort, but connection. And while I don't regret it, I don't want us to pretend it didn't change anything. Ethan turned towards the window where the garden bloomed in late spring light. He used to help me plant tulips there. When he was a teenager, he always loved the red ones best. I think what it changed, he said quietly, is how I see love. I spent years thinking it had to look a certain way. But last night showed me love can be quiet, simple. Just two people holding space for each other when the world feels too heavy. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the truth of his words. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. Maybe we go back to our lives. Maybe we carry this night with us, tucked away, where it's safe, whatever we decide. He said gently, I need to know we'll always be honest, always kind. I promise. The rest of the day passed with a kind of calm that felt almost new. We weren't just mother and son that afternoon. We were two people healing together. We cleared away the last of the funeral flowers, sorted through Daniel's old things, laughed at silly photos, cried over his favorite books. There was no heaviness between us, only quiet understanding. By evening, Ethan had packed an overnight bag. At the door, he hesitated. Can I hug you before I go? Always. His arms wrapped around me tight, longer than usual. I held him just as fiercely. No words passed between us. We didn't need them. As he pulled back, he touched my cheek. You're stronger than anyone I know. And you're gentler than you think, I replied. He smiled faintly. I'll call you when I get home. The door closed softly behind him. I stood in the hallway for a long while, breathing in the silence. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the house itself was holding the echoes of what we'd shared. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, eyes falling on the photo of Daniel and me I had stared at so many nights before. This time I smiled. Thank you, I whispered. Not because I was letting him go, but because he had brought me here to this moment. Through all the years of pain, somehow I was left with a son who could love me with the truth I hadn't even known I needed. Some people may never understand what Ethan and I shared that night. But I do. And he does. It wasn't about crossing lines. It was about finding healing in the most unexpected place. In each other. Love and Tears family. Sometimes love doesn't come in the form the world expects. Have you ever found comfort in a place you never imagined? Share your thoughts, I'm listening.